Hey guys, what's going on? This is Brad from the Ed Army, and today we are going into some in-depth plays of how to actually do combos in Pure K9. So I do have this video for you just to show you guys a bit of the situations that might come up, but also explaining what you can do to navigate around them. I do hope you enjoy it. I do also want to say thank you very much for being a part of the Ed Army if you are one of our recent subscribers, but also just someone who's doing the channel for the first time. I appreciate you. Go ahead and let me know down below what you think of the videos, but also if there's anything I'm missing, make sure to go ahead and comment down below. So I'm not a perfect person, and I know that with your guys' help we can make things a lot better as well. So that's just all I've got to say. I hope you guys do enjoy the video, and we'll go into the combos right now. So guys, we're going to get started. We're going to go through some of the just more interesting quick plays and combos you can do. So interestingly enough, for this, the main combo I think you need to learn in Pure and maximize the most of will be both Joe Cool and Lantern. So the reason these two are the most important, I think, in Pure is that unlike in the other decks, when you have these cards, they're usually just being used for their extending possibilities, and sometimes you bridge, but what you're trying to do here with these two is that it sets you up everything every time with these two, because basically Joe Cool fixes the problem of you not having access to any other monster, but Lantern also fixes the issue by getting you any spell or trap you want. Specifically, if you get Case will get you to any monster you want, so it fixes that issue. So basically, if you want all four monsters into rotation immediately, this combination gets it done, because Lantern can get you access to Case can get you access to either Izuna or Lupus, and then vice versa. Or if you want to do Joe Cool's effect and get access to Azuna or Lupus, you can get the rotation started that way. Remember, you're special summoning these with Joe Cool's effect, so this is kind of the reason why you want this cycle ready. The also important factor you need to keep in mind with these two is that it does change depending on what you're playing against. So say I'm blinding going blinding going first. The plays change a lot, because if I'm going first, I have to think, okay, so I don't know what I'm against, so that's usually an important thing. And I haven't been interacted with, and I get both of the searches off, then I know for whatever it is, they must be either holding interactions or it's a deck that's built better to break boards. So the main thing you want to get access to when you're starting off is always going to be a layering. So with Joe Cool and then Lantern, the cards you always want to get if you don't know what you're going against will always be these two, being both Izuna and Case, because what you're trying to establish here is that you want follow-up because you don't know what you're playing against for the next turn. Also, you want Case because Case can let you cycle into another monster, and it also will allow you the ability to have that additional 900 buff. It is important because depending on what your opponent's playing, they will proc that effect more than likely, unless it's like stun or some type of trap deck, or they get rid of Case. But the point is, this effect will be good because if you end with a board with minimal monsters, this is the setup you want, because now you'll have access to Lupus no matter what. But also, Zuna is able to be normal summoned if you really want to extend the board, which is another play you can totally do by just normal summoning her and sending a card. But also Case, like I said, it fills the issue of getting you access to maybe your second Lantern if you want to like fetch something from the grave or not. So keeping those in mind. But the point is, say we're going to start off with the combo, and I'm just going to show you kind of where the changes. So have both of these on field, right? Use their effects, search. Say for instance you go ahead, you case effect, grab Izuna, go ahead, normal summon your Izuna, go ahead, you'll use its effect, you'll send your Lupus, so Lupus is in grave, and now you have these three ready, and you get to decide what you want to do here. So usually what I'll always do is the Xyz material that you want in grave is always going to be a monster that you don't want to this is because I play Bestials. You want a Dark Engrave maybe, because you maybe want to summon a Bestial. But if you're against your opponent and you don't know what they're playing, you usually don't want to put something that can be hit with Call by the Grave that will matter on their turn. So like if you're going turn 1, you don't want to put like an Izuna Engrave, because if they have Call by the Grave, that Izuna now is dead. Or like you could put Lupus here if you don't want to summon it, but you do run that risk of not being able to access it unless you have Lantern in your hand. So what I tend to do is here, you go ahead and use the Izuna as one of the materials, and you lock it down with either Joe Cool or Lantern. This does not matter, actually. It just depends on what you feel like. And then depending on where you're playing against or what you're playing against, this is where the adaptation changes. So say for instance you're playing against Draco Tail, and you know it's Draco Tail. So against Draco Tail, you have a choice. Usually, if I don't have access to the Lupus to be a material, I'll always make a copy of Ripper, because here, if you're going first, you still want to cycle more cards, so you'll detach a material from the Ripper to search, and this is always going to be like your additional follow-up, because remember, you get a Canine card off a Ripper, so this is where you get access to your quick plays as well, so you'll get like LC Liberation, you'll get access to your Force Release, and if your opponent did activate a monster effect, remember, you get the bonus effect to set a quick play. The reason this is big is that you can add both quick plays, one to your hand and set the other, so you have your full setup for the next turn. You can also get the experimental release if you want to use it as a trap card, totally up to you, but also you can cycle another monster, so if you want another Rizuna, for instance, you can go ahead and grab that, or follow up, you can grab Joe or Lantern. So like I said, going first, this is kind of where you want to be. You want to go ahead and maybe detach off the Joe because maybe you want to keep the Azuna underneath. You don't know, you might have one in hand. I always want to bring that up because sometimes you forget that there are cards in the format that just stop what you're doing. So if for whatever reason we just want a going first setup, I almost at this point always make sure that I either have Force Release in the rotation, or this is where you grab your LC Liberation, because you want both of these ready in some type of capacity, because they do recycle themselves. So it's always important that you get one into rotation, specifically Force Release, because it is a pop. But here, if you're just getting one, LC is always really good, because you can wait till your opponent maybe builds a board to run over your monsters and then go into this to get into Werewolf that way. So it is up to you. And then this one's always obviously the Disruption, so it is up to you. But pretty much for that, this is where what happens if we're going first. Now if we're going second, two things change. So if we're going second, we will still do a similar play here, because an issue is you really want to make sure you're able to OTK, because this is one of the bigger things in the deck. So what you're trying to do if you're going to go for an OTK is that you have the cycle ready, or you have this similar setup, you've detached, and you're going for another search. This is where you're going to grab LC Liberation here, because you need this to try to OTK your opponent. Because if you're going to try to do the OTK this way, you're actually in a very decent position as long as you have monsters you can clear, because you just want to do some chip damage. And the reason why I say chip damage is that what you're going to proceed to do, you go battle phase, right? Attack with the Lantern, attack with the Ripper, maybe only do a couple hundred damage, like not a lot. You're going to go for your LC Liberation during the battle phase, and immediately go into your X-Werewolf here with the Ripper. So the reason we're doing it this way is so that obviously the Ripper or the Werewolf will now have 2 attacks, and it'd be at 3,300. So now you'll be able to do, like, depending on how if you cleared the board or if you did some damage, this thing will clear the rest of the field, but also it can do the distributing 66 damage with its own attack, and that could be close to game. So that's one of the setups you want if you're going second and you can see that there's a way to win the game. You just go for it here, because if there is a monster effect used, this thing will be at 42, even the Lantern will be at 29, so you'll be doing a lot more damage here, and then you're able to just win the game quicker. So like I said, that's where it changes up depending on that. So that's like the main combo, because I mean that's the best way, because unfortunately for K9, one of its weaknesses I haven't mentioned is that you're locked behind whatever the opponent does sometimes. So I'll show you in the next one really quickly another combo. Now we'll talk about the importance of Lupus in the deck, because I think the best way to showcase it is how Lupus works. So say you have a hand like this. So maybe Joe is usually the best one because you want to do this. You have Joe Lupus. Many times you think the Lupus is a brick. No, this is actually fantastic, because you'll go Joe effect, summon both. Then use Joe effect here. You're going to use its effect to search. Now, in this position, you're still going to want to search for Case of K9 because you want to be able to access more monsters, but this will actually have a beneficial factor in a minute. You'll then activate the case, so if they haven't drolled you or anything, you'll do that, and you'll add a copy of Lantern to your hand. Then here we're going to Xyz here, and you're going to go ahead and make your Ripper. So we have Ripper, detach Ripper here. This is where you're going to change it up and actually detach Lupus off. So Lupus gets detached, and then you'll search. Here, honestly, it depends, because if you're going first, I always say this is where you choose to either search your LC Liberation or you choose to search for a monster. So here, I would probably search for an Azuna just so you have follow-up. So grab the Azuna. And now you're in a position where at first it seems like, okay, well, we haven't achieved fully everything. Now we're going to use Lantern's effect targeting the Lupus, summon back Lupus, summon back or summon down the Lantern, use Lantern's effect. And now since you've already added Azuna, this is your choice. You either get Force Release or you get Case. Normally, I would probably say, since you don't need a follow-up case because you've already used the case, go ahead and grab your Force Release here, because if we're going first, this is what you want. If you're going second, this is what you want. So pretty much we go that way, get it in rotation, and then what we do here is then manually exceeds, obviously, so we're going to do that. Go ahead. And then here, this is where you make a choice. So if you're going to try to close out the game in OTK, you can go ahead and make either a Hound here, because, or actually you can't make a Hound because it's a light monster. You make a Valon here. You can make your River Stormer here. You could also make your Nash Knight here. So the reason I want to showcase this combo is this is kind of what you want to open, because once you get this play started, you're in position to do a lot, because if you go Nash Knight, you have access to whatever you need going into turn 2, because then you can do the full the snatch combo and get set up. If you go for Valon, Valon will have targeting protection as well and be able to book stuff face down. And then if you make River Stormer, this is more so if you're going second. If you want to try to make a Zeus play, if you don't think you can OTK your opponent, you can make River Stormer. But personally, I would always go for Valon or Nash Knight here, because then you're able to set up your rank 5 with targeting protection. And usually the reason we want Valon if we're going first is that this becomes more useful as the turns play out, but also because we still had the ability to search off a Lantern. If we searched for the LC Liberation, we now have the ability to turn Valon into a K9 Xyz monster, and if we had searched Force Release, we can then turn the Ripper into a bigger Xyz monster and have the pop. So this is kind of why we sequence it this way. But the point is, you have a targeting Book of Moon, you have a negate off of the Ripper, you have access to Azuna in hand to send it, you also have access to any of your quick plays that you searched. And the reason this combo is so steady is that it doesn't look like a lot, but it does a lot of interaction, which is what you're aiming for. And because of Case of K9, your Ripper will be big. So if you decide to play LC Liberate, or get the LC over the Force Release, you can at least use the LC to turn the Valon into another of the Xyz monsters that are K9, and then they're going to get the boost from that Case of K9. So that's also another play you can make. But the point is, this is what you're trying to achieve with this one, and this is usually my go-to board. It looks like this, and you remember you back it up with a bunch of hand traps, so that's kind of the key element there. Okay, finally we'll go over the last one, and this is just going to be how you kind of use this deck as a going second deck to push down your opponent and break through. So the real good way to do this is that when you're playing this deck, you play a ton of, I think hand traps obviously is the best way to play it if you're going to play pure, but it's like you're playing all the non-engines to slow down your opponent so that your engine can just go in really quick and finish the game. This is so that you pressure really quickly and then push them down. So by pushing down, it's like the hand traps are too annoying, they can't do enough, and then they're left in this weird way where they can't really do anything, so they're forced to play through the field, and you're just able to clean up. So usually the best setups are always like I said, it's either Jokul with Lupus, because you really want to make sure that you get them on the field, because Jokul is the best card in this deck and pure. So anytime you have Jokul with any of the other level 5s, you're in such a strong position already, because the moment you go for the Jokul and get both on field, it's immediate board presence, because now your opponent is in a weird position, because a lot of times people will try to bounce your stuff. Remember, you have to special summon in attack position. I mean, you don't actually have to, but you can. I usually just do that, so, you know, you can choose to do that because you can avoid like horn and stuff. Because sometimes I've walked into that and they horn back the Jokul to my hand, and then the next thing I do, I just proceed to normal summon the Jokul, and they're like, oh, yeah, that happens, right? So talking about it for the OTK, like I said, this is always a necessary piece. And then if you have access to Lupus, this makes it always better, because the point is, if you have access to Lupus in rotation, it just gives you that targeting protection, so your opponent can't really negate the additional effects of your monsters. So always having this combination. So like, say you did this setup, you got both on field, and you're deciding to just go for adding a monster, and you go for your Lantern, and then from here you exceed, you do the same combo that we've been talking about forever. You go into Ripper, Ripper's effect, detach, go ahead and add LC Liberation here. And this is actually like the full OTK combo if you pull this off, because we have access to this. We're gonna use the Lanterns effect, summon down itself, bring back Lupus, then use its effect, grab Case of K9, activate Case of K9, search, grab an Izuna. Then you're going to use the manual Xyz here, because you remember the Ripper is important because it sets up the negate in case you get Nibiru'd. You're gonna go here. Here, you can choose, because since we did summon it back, remember you can't make Hound. So this is where like the double Ripper, if you see the game is gonna be closed here, you make double Ripper here. Because it doesn't matter, you're not locked into not summoning it more than once. So you summon it, and then here you can proceed to go ahead and normal summon the Izuna. And then people might think this is really weird looking, but the point is now you're in the position to win the game. You're gonna go battle phase, and then here you proceed. Usually what you're gonna want to do is always do the little bits of damage first, because you're just trying to close off as many monsters as possible. But if you also see the position where if you can go immediately into the LC Liberation, make the X-Werewolf, have the Werewolf clear the field, and then you finish off the damage with the other monsters, you can do that too. Because both Ripper and Izuna together, that's 4,400 damage. So if you can do just like, you know, a fraction of the damage you need, you can win the game, because that's already half. Like sometimes you can lead and just go battle phase, so they say it's fine, you go LC, and then they're like, okay, I wonder what he's doing, and then you just slam down the X-Werewolf on the Ripper with 3 materials, and then it's going to attack for 3 times, or it's going to attack 3 times, so that's 3 attacks with 3,300 attack. You clear pretty much all the boss monsters, unless they have some weird way in the battle phase to summon more monsters, and then you proceed, Ripper and then Izuna can attack, and that's 44, so like I said, that's basically game usually. I bring this up because this deck doesn't have too many complicated combos, and usually in bad positions you're doing the same thing all the time. And what I mean by bad positions is like if your back's against the wall, you're pretty much doing the same thing. You're just trying to find ways to crack the board and then like punch through. Because like I said, in the actual pure version, you're trying to just make sure that you're OTKing a lot, because you don't want to get stuck in that position where you can't OTK, because the deck can play a drawn out game, but you'd rather not have to play a drawn out game against your opponent. I'm going to be honest, you'd rather just get the game done with as quickly as possible, because the deck does have burnout when you get to a certain point, because you run out of Xyz in pure. Because in pure, its weakness is that it's locked behind how many Xyz monsters you can go into. So yes, I play like double Hound, which you haven't seen, and you can recycle your release cards, so you do have the ability to do that. But the point is you want to make sure that your Xyz monsters are actually making impacts. You don't want them to be slow and stagnant. So this is where, you know, the best goal is to try to close the game quickly, but also, like I said, you can basically summon a bunch of monsters with over 2k attack, and you can do a lot of damage. So there's been times where I've just summoned all 4 of the main deck monsters in a single turn, and the opponent actually didn't have enough, and then with Case of K9, I just slowly attacked them, and then I beat them that way. So do keep in mind you can do that as well. But pretty much that's it, guys. There's not really much more to say. The deck is very simple. Like I said, the combos aren't the most crazy in terms of like what you're probably expecting. If you want like really crazy ceiling combos, you do need to pair this with another deck engine. But guys, that's all I've got for you today. I do hope you enjoyed this, and if it's helped you out, let me know down below in the comments if you have any combos that you do or anything you noticed. Let me know, as it does help out. And as always, this has been Brad from the Ed Army signing off, and for all of you out there, to sign on.